Welcome to Recreate Parenting, the podcast from licensed therapist and author Roya. We're going to talk about creative tools for more connection so that you can release fear and find joy in all of the places your kids take you. This podcast is especially wonderful for those of you who feel like your families don't quite fit the mold.
4-year-old intentionally ruining her food. How do you handle it when your child intentionally ruins their food? My 4-year-old specifically asked for teriyaki noodles for dinner. She's eaten them before and she loves them. This time she intentionally poured her drink in her noodles. She only apologized once she was caught, and then she asked for more noodles because she didn't want hers anymore. How would you discipline your child in this situation? I want her to learn from this that we don't waste food. Would you only offer them the ruined noodles for the rest of the night when they say they're hungry or they want different noodles? Or would you make them more? I feel like I should start this segment with the caveat that if you were in my therapist office coming to me with the situation as a client, we would be having a very different conversation than what I am going to just say to the anonymous public about this occurrence. All right? If you were here in my office, we would be sitting down and I'd be asking you to talk to me about what happened for you. You noticed your daughter pouring her drink. Something flared up for you very, very clearly. You had something raw, something triggery at the idea that she on purpose ruined her food because doesn't she know that that's wasteful? I think it would be worth exploring that piece for you. Now, you're not in my office. I cannot do this work with you. So I do want to break this down a little bit just in case any of you listening or watching have had a similar instant automated, reaction to something like this. So the first thing is the idea that she intentionally ruined it. I just challenged that premise to begin with. This kid did not intentionally ruin her food. Now, did she intentionally pick up the water or drink or whatever and pour it in her noodles? Probably. Because have you ever been 4? Yes, you have. Do you remember being 4? And this is the piece that baffles me all the time. Do we not have recall of what it was like to be little and not understand the way the world works? Do we not remember what it's like to have to try something, actually physically try it to find out what the outcome will be? At the age of 4, there's no concrete extrapolation happening, right? Nothing is really getting generalized. Every single part of your life is still a grand science experiment. So yes, she probably picked up that cup and poured it on her noodles. She had the, cognition, the control of her arm to pick it up and pour it, but it wasn't to ruin anything. It was to figure out things. Because at the age of 4, that's the only thing we're doing. We're just figuring things out. It's, if I do this, what happens? Ooh, that happened? That's cool. Will it happen again? Will it happen again? What if I tweak this other thing? Will that happen? If I do it while I'm standing, will that happen? What if I'm doing it while I'm screaming at the top of my lungs? Will the same thing happen? I mean, basically 4-year-olds are the greatest scientists that have ever existed, and all they do is in pursuit of figuring out the patterns. So there's a very, very good chance that if there is something that was destroyed, ruined, made a mess of, misplaced, whatever the thing is, that it was the result of an experiment, not maliciousness on the part of your kid. Being able to do that kind of cause and effect, right? If I do this, then this, is an abstract skill that doesn't hit us till much, much later in our life. In fact, I know a handful, quite a lot, of adults my age that don't always succeed in that kind of if this then this sort of thinking, So to expect a 4-year-old to be able to do that is asking quite a lot. At the age of 40, yeah, I might be able to think, I like these noodles. If I pour a liquid on these noodles, I may not like them so much anymore. Maybe I won't do that. But do you see how many layers of different thought processes that is? It's being able to think abstractly, think about a cause and effect, a consequence, and then make a decision based on that information, and then have the impulse control to not act on that first thought. That's a lot of really higher level, developmentally speaking, brain work that a 4-year-old is not necessarily, nor ought they be capable of that yet. And if you want them to be capable of that kind of thinking at some point, they have to do things like this to figure those things out. It's kind of a catch-22 for us parents sometimes. Like, please don't empty that thing onto the floor. And this is how you learn what happens when you empty that thing onto the floor. Oh, I don't know, like a Costco size thing of laundry detergent or a Costco size thing of blueberries. Ask me how I know. And maybe I should stop leaving the Costco shopping within arm's reach of my toddler. So what this parent is asking is also like, how would you discipline your kid? And again, I want to challenge even the premise that discipline is necessary here. This isn't a discipline question. You don't discipline your kid for experimentation like that. You have conversations, you talk about it, you make observations, you say, oh shucks, guess what that means? And wow, yeah, those do not taste good now, do they? And you are on their team for this learning process. What discipline does is tells this child that they are wrong and to be punished. But they are not going to be picking up what you think you're laying down. You think that you're laying down that wasting food is wrong, but that wasn't what they set out to do to begin with, right? So they're going to pick up trying something is wrong. That's not what you want for your kid. Curiosity is wrong? Creativity is wrong? No, absolutely not, right? So we have to be really, really careful and check our impulse as parents to discipline based on a lesson that we want to impart, because our kids are not always going to be learning the lesson that we think that we are teaching. This person posted also that she only apologized once she was caught. And I wish I was a fly in the wall for that particular conversation, because I would bet anything that that child still doesn't understand what it was that they were apologizing for. They were probably very, very sorry that they upset their parent, because I bet that part was obvious. But I bet they don't even totally know what it is that they are to be sorry about. So you know what I would do? I would say, hey, what an experiment. Those did not taste good, huh? I might even try them. I might make it kind of silly. If we've already ruined a bowl of noodles, maybe we could lean in and like add other things to it and see what kind of concoction we make. Because if that's the kind of experimentation that your kid is doing and is ready for, then let's lean into it. Let's do some more messy, sciencey stuff with an already ruined bowl of food. Be on her team in this process. Absolutely offer her food that is not destroyed. Think about how to be compassionate in that situation. Be on her team. So if you don't want her to do this again, then weirdly, you got to lean into it more, right? Because that means that you need to give her more spaces for that kind of experimentation. Maybe things that are not like, the planned dinner. Maybe there's some expired foods or something that you could play with at another time. Maybe there's other places, other ways that you can do that kind of cause and effect, whether it's about the figuring out the patterns, or it's about the tactile experience of adding things to each other that 4-year-olds also need. Whatever it is, if she needs that, then give her more of that. And then at dinner time, you get to have conversations about like, oh, hey, let's not do it with this. We've got those old gross noodles over there we can play with, Right now, this is the food we have to eat. And so if we do A, B, and C to our food, we're going to run out of good food. And if your kid understands that you are ultimately on their team, that what you want for them is the ability to play and make mess and be creative, then they're going to trust you when you say, hey, let's not do it this way, but let's find a way to do it in a different way. There's one more piece of language here I wanted to point out, which is that this parent said, I want her to learn from this that we don't waste food. Experimentation is not necessarily a waste. Now, I get that you might not want to cook a very expensive, fancy meal and have somebody throw it, what feels like, into the garbage. But that process of playing with it and experimenting with it, she learned from that. And you get to help, to some extent, figure out what it is that she learned. You get to have her have a great experience and experimentation, or you can be punitive and yell at her and punishing her for something that is within her developmental norm. And then she's going to learn some things that are very, very different. But either way, I wouldn't consider that a wasted experience. Now, you can say, I want her to learn that this food that I prep or I spend this kind of money on, or, that I spend this time with, that I want us to actually consume that. And I want us to have other spaces to do this other kind of play. That's cool, but it's not inherently a waste to experiment. So to wrap up, random parent who is worried about your 4-year-old intentionally ruining her food, please remember that this is what 4-year-olds do. She is not out to get you. She does not know your trigger points. She does not have the same messaging or, dare I say it, baggage wrapped up around the idea of wasting food. She is doing what 4-year-olds are supposed to be doing, being messy, being curious, being creative, and being scientific. All right? That kind of experiment is normal, healthy, and important. So it's your job to be on her team, give her a lot of opportunities for that, and feed her if something is wrong with her food, even if she was the reason that something was wrong with her food.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Recreate Parenting Podcast. As always, I want to invite you to set aside and honor some time for creativity every single week by joining the Play with Purpose monthly membership group. You can find information about that and everything else I've got to offer for you creative parents at royadedo.com. That's ROYADEDEAUX.com.